In the name of God. The Philosopher's Paradox.
The lecture hall buzzed with an almost tangible effervescence as students filled the room, eager for the philosopher's discourse. His reputation as an eclectic thinker had drawn a diverse crowd, each seeking illumination on the paradox of existence. He began with a measured cadence, his voice neither ebullient nor monotonous, but balanced between gravity and intrigue. "We seek meaning," he declared, "yet meaning itself is dormant until we awaken it through our own questioning." A hush fell over the audience, the weight of his words settling in the marrow of their thoughts. Could mere introspection breathe life into the dormant specter of purpose? Or was the pursuit of clarity merely a symptom of deeper existential disquiet? Philosophy, he argued, is no static truth but a document of human inquiry, ever evolving and refracted through individual perception. To define existence is to limit it, he continued, his gaze sweeping across the sea of inquisitive faces. A student in the back, emboldened by the dialectic, raised his hand. Is it not, then, the role of philosophy to elicit answers from the unknown rather than impose them? The professor smiled, acknowledging the insight. Indeed, he said, but beware of those who feign enlightenment, for they often dupe themselves before misleading others. His words resonated, a caution against both intellectual arrogance and credulity. The pursuit of wisdom, it seemed, required equal parts skepticism and wonder. A murmur spread through the crowd, as if each mind were fermenting its own philosophy, a silent effervescence of thought. One student muttered something under his breath, hastily scribbling notes that barely formed coherence. Dogma, the philosopher continued, is the dross of true understanding, the residue left when curiosity has been burned away. The student frowned, realizing the irony, he had clung too fiercely to a single perspective. Another voice rose, challenging the claim. But certainty grants stability, she argued, without it, are we not adrift in perpetual doubt? The philosopher paused, letting the question linger, his response forming like mist before the dawn. There is a difference, he replied, between certainty and being dogmatic. He leaned forward, his gaze sharp but not unkind. To be certain is to hold a position, to be dogmatic is to refuse to re-examine it. The room tensed as students glanced at one another, grappling with their own tightly held beliefs. Was their confidence a form of intellectual integrity or merely a shield against uncertainty? The philosopher let silence reign, knowing that discomfort often breeds the most profound revelations. The danger, he continued, lies not in questioning, but in fearing the questions themselves. A sudden laugh cut through the hush, sharp, cynical. A student smirked, his tone dripping with contempt. So what, he scoffed. Are we all just fools, writing doggerel in the margins of existence? The professor's lips twitched, amused rather than offended. Perhaps, he said, but even doggerel, in its clumsy rhythm, can hint at truth. The remark hung in the air, challenging the student's cynicism. Was philosophy merely verbose absurdity, or did meaning emerge even from fractured prose? The student, though skeptical, remained silent, his derision now laced with reluctant curiosity. Another student, more earnest, pressed forward. If certainty is flawed, then is doubt our only refuge, she asked. The philosopher gestured toward the world beyond the lecture hall. Doubt is not a sanctuary, he said, but a tool wielded wisely, and it sharpens understanding, misuse it, and it renders thought effete. A shiver of realization ran through the audience. Doubt was neither the enemy nor the answer, it was the catalyst. The student nodded slowly, as if tasting the weight of this revelation for the first time. So, we doubt to refine, not to diminish, she mused. The professor inclined his head in agreement. Exactly. To discard all belief is as blind as to cling to it. He tapped his fingers against the lectern, rhythmically punctuating his next thought. True wisdom requires embracing contradiction without succumbing to nihilism. The students absorbed this in contemplative silence, some furrowing their brows, others staring blankly ahead. A philosophy built not on rigid truths but on the elasticity of thought, it was as exhilarating as it was unsettling. Was it possible, they wondered, to live within paradox and still find peace? A rustling at the back interrupted their reverie. A young man, visibly restless, stood abruptly. If no truth is absolute, then why seek at all? His voice wavered between defiance and desperation. If everything is fluid, isn't meaning just an illusion? The philosopher met his gaze, his expression unreadable. And yet, he said softly, you are here asking. The student faltered, caught between resistance and recognition. The professor continued, his voice measured. Even in uncertainty, we act. Even knowing we will never grasp the full picture, we still reach. A ripple of understanding passed through the students. This was the paradox, they were drawn to knowledge not because it promised certainty, but because it compelled them forward. The student, still standing, exhaled sharply and sat back down. The room, for a moment, seemed to breathe in unison. A final question lingered in the air. Is hedonism a trap, then? A quiet voice asked. The professor turned his attention to her, studying her pensive expression. Hedonism, he said, is the pursuit of fulfillment in the fleeting. He let the thought settle before continuing. It thrives on desire but cannot sustain contentment. To live by pleasure alone is to chase the horizon, beautiful but unreachable. The students exchanged glances, weighing the implications. The discussion had unraveled the very fabric of their assumptions, leaving threads of thought to weave anew. They had come seeking answers but departed with deeper questions. The philosopher watched them go, knowing that his role was not to provide certainty, but to unsettle it. Outside, the world continued as always, unchanged, yet different in their eyes. And within them, the effervescence of inquiry had only just begun.
Like and subscribe if you would like.